The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the fuckboy that's doing performance art at every one of your parties, that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him. I just summed up two of the characters in this movie.
For real, yeah. So welcome to episode 100 of the Frankencast.
Yay, 100, we made it!
It's really, it's wild. I feel pretty accomplished about it, though. It's exciting.
You know, we're hitting milestones, man. It feels good.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk? We're in year 2, firmly in year 2. Or are we year 3?
We'll start year 3 in October.
In October, right.
So, yeah.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah.
So there you go.
But of course, for episode 100, we had to do something big and exciting. So we're going back to the woman that started it all, Mary Shelley.
And back in the ancient years of 2017.
Right.
So it is a star-packed movie, okay? Right? Mm-hmm. Can we say that? Or at least mostly.
Yeah.
I mean, so, all right, we have Elle Fanning, mm-hmm. right? She's done a lot of horror movies, a lot of movies in general. Then we've got Maisie Williams, a.k.a. Arya Stark, who is criminally underutilized.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a very minor role crazy. For her.
Right. And then, if you're a fan of Netflix's Sandman, Tom fucking Sturridge, a.k.a. Morpheus, is in this bad boy.
Yeah, he's our Lord Byron.
And a bunch of other people pretty much from BBC.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people that, and if you've watched any of, the old, the Pride and Prejudices, all of the BBC literary things, yeah, the people who do all those period things show up in here as well.
And then you got Douglas Booth, who looks like he's freaking chiseled out of stone, the bastard.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a movie full of good-looking people.
No doubt, right?
Yeah.
And also, I thought that Harriet Shelley, who does she remind me of? Julia Stiles. Julia Stiles look-alike for Harriet.
Yeah, I can see that.
But no, it's, Ciara Chartis? Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, it looks like she's just been in sort of BBC stuff too. I didn't know her from anything, but yeah, she definitely does have a Julia Stiles look about her now that you say that.
Right? I know, and I'm like, oh, is that Julia? No, okay. All right, I need to calm down. So let's get this party started. So we start off with scribbling and whispering, an open sky, some angelic singing for whatever reason.
Yeah, and we get a quote on the screen, "There's something at work in my soul which I do not understand."
Love it.
And I think that the opening credits, it definitely kind of gives you the tone of this movie. We're going to get a lot of interstitial footage of the British countryside, the Scottish countryside, the forests, waterfalls. It's a very pastoral movie. And
random shots of ethereal space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely, there's a lot where it just wants you to kind of vibe with what's going on, and, it'll take you out of the story and just kind of, present something pretty and then move on.
Yeah, this movie is definitely a vibe. It's abandonment. I understand you. No.
Yeah.
And we get a quote from Mary Shelley, "Scarcely had the demon cast his burning stare upon her." I mean... that's very Frankensteinian. It's like proto-Frankenstein, right?
Yeah, which is accurate because it's an early Gothic novel that she's reading from called The Castle of Wolfenbach. We see Mary. She is sitting against a gravestone in an old kind of Gothic graveyard, and of course it's her mother's.
As Mary Shelley's want to do.
Yeah. So she's just reading, leaning up against her mother's headstone, and then hears thunder and takes off running, runs through the village, and
Okay, so let me ask you a question here. Is this supposed to be London?
I think
I
so.
feel like it is, because it doesn't look like that period London. It looks like, hey, we're still in like the 1400s. We just got out of like the medieval era. We're entering the Renaissance right now.
Yeah, there's definitely just like open air markets and stuff. It definitely, like, I don't know if this is just, a poorer part of London that is less developed or what, but yeah, it definitely looks older than, when this time would have been, which is, 1800s.
Right, and there's way less smog than you would have expected.
Right, yeah.
From all the coal, yeah.
So Mary arrives home and she talks to her two siblings about the ghost story she was reading. And then her stepmother comes in and kind of chastises her for being out and not helping her father with his work.
Right. So first off, the siblings are Claremont, right? And what is his name? Is it William Godwin? Yeah. Yeah, he's William the Younger. Yeah, William Godwin. Jr.
So Claire is Mary's half sister, or no, not even half sister. Stepsister, right? Yeah, because Mary's father and Claire's mother married after they were both born, and so then you've got William, who is the product of Mary's father and Claire's mother.
He's the half brother,
right?
Exactly. Which is interesting because in real life, so there was also an older stepbrother named Charles. No mention of Charles. Just fuck Charles.
Yeah,
he's the earnest of this movie,
right? Yeah, it feels like they may have just needed to kind of streamline things.
Yeah.
And
what would he have brought, I guess?
Yeah. And William's hardly even in it either. It's I mean, which from the stories you hear about Mary, the famous writing of the the novel and everything takes place on a trip where Claire is, but William is obviously not there for that. So the relationship between Mary and Claire is definitely a bigger part of this story.
But am I wrong in assuming, wasn't it at least Charles who was like, hey, I'm here to represent my sister for her book?
Yeah, I feel like they just kind of wrapped that up in her dad. Her dad's just kind of all of the above for that.
Right. Once again, to streamline the characters, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, we know that Mary is definitely into ghost stories.
Mm-hmm. And so her father owns a bookstore. So he comes in and Mary picks up the ghost story book and sneakily hands it to Claire, who hides it behind her back. So while the stepmom is kind of chastising her for being out reading, the dad comes in and sees important literature sitting on the table and is like, oh, good. I'm glad to see you're reading things, important works.
Okay. So hold on one second, though, because I did some looking up of Mr. Godwin's. He is also a writer. So both of her parents are prolific writers. Mm-hmm. Okay? So one of his books was Things as They Are. As They Are. And that's about literally the justice system destroying people.
Okay.
It's very progressive. Good job. Mm-hmm. 400 years ago.
Right.
And then there was another one. And I don't want to hear any bullshit. I am against this because, or against his sassery of ghost stories. Because another one of his books is called Saint Leon. It's about a dude who drinks the elixir of life and wandering, which, that's questionable when you add the word wandering and person who's immortal. Right. And becomes separated from his humanity. Okay? Okay. Then we get one called Fleetwood, which is basically just almost a Buddhist journey through an idealistic world where the idealistic world is, bad because it's idealistic and you're not facing reality.
Okay.
And he also decides that in that book he's going to shit on Jean-Jacques Rousseau and his worldview.
Okay.
So, I mean, this guy is no stranger to, gothic, not exactly horror stories, but horror-adjacent stuff. Mm-hmm.
And that feels, those definitely feel like proto-Frankenstein things, where it's you're using this format to tell something bigger. Definitely those stories, like you said, they're horror adjacent, but it's obvious that he's got a philosophical message he's trying to get across with that, which is exactly, the case with Frankenstein as well.
Right, exactly. And that is one point they make here of how radical his ideas are. Mm-hmm. And it's like, now we would just call it slightly progressive.
Right, yeah.
Which is rough 400 years later.
Right, yeah. And so after he kind of talks to her about her which the books that he sees are like
Canterbury Tales and Political Justice or something like that.
Yeah, it's like, and was Paradise Lost one of them, or
I didn't see that, but that doesn't mean I didn't miss it.
Yeah, for some reason I was thinking, but it's stuff along those lines. There's definitely one that's like a really long, like political book, and then Canterbury Tales. But so Godwin leaves the room, and we hear him in the bookshop getting confronted by several creditors who discuss his overdue loans, and that it's time to pay up or you're in trouble.
We gave you 6 months already, and then he's like, "Well, give me 1 more month."
Yeah,
and I think they relate. They relent at that point. They're like, "Yeah, sure, all right, 1 month, and that's it."
Mm-hmm. And so then we see like the kids are still in the back room hearing all of this, and Mary tries to kind of distract William by telling him a ghost story so that he's not hearing all this upsetting, money stuff, and doesn't have to be afraid for their family.
There comes that mood again. I know that feeling all too well. It's like, let's distract ourselves.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, escapism,
Yeah.
And so then we just cut to like that night. Mary is in bed. Like her and Claire share a bedroom. Mary's writing, and then Claire is having a nightmare that she just kind of like bolts awake in the middle of the nightmare. So Mary kind of like gets in bed with her and comforts her. Tells her it was a dream and everything, and then she goes downstairs because I think it's just like she can't sleep now after Claire kind of disturbed her.
Been there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she finds, it's a bookstore, so she's basically got like this giant library available to her.
Well, she chooses a very specific book.
Mm-hmm. She picks up her mother's book, A Vindication on the Rights of Women.
And their strictures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is like one of the earliest works of feminism by Mary's now deceased mother. So this is definitely like where she's getting her political stuff, but is also like she's trying to connect with her mom, who she never knew.
And of course, that's when her father comes in, and she asks if he missed her.
Yeah, because Mary, her mother died like 10 days after Mary was born, so she doesn't really have any memories of her. But she like misses the idea of her, she never got to have a mother. So her and her dad kind of like bond at like, feeling this emptiness in their lives where, Mary Wollstonecraft should be. Then we just cut to like the next day. Mary's
right. There's more ghost stories on Mom's grave.
Yeah, Mary's like in the back of the shop at one. She's like writing again. The stepmom comes in and is like, "What are you doing? You should be working. Let me see what you were writing." And tries
evil
to take
stepmom.
Yeah, central casting evil stepmom. I don't know how bad her mom was in real life or her stepmom, but yeah, in here, they're definitely.
The only thing I noticed is that she was just annoyed by her. That's all they say, which could run the gamut from literally this lady was just a pain in her ass constantly to, she was mildly annoyed that she married her dad.
Yeah. But yeah, in this case, she's like trying to snatch this journal away from Mary, and they kind of like pull at each other, and the stepmom ends up falling in the process. She like loses her grip and falls down. Then that's when her dad comes in and, sees what looks like, Mary having pushed her stepmom down.
Right. Well, because she's playing it off. Like, she's like, she pushed me. Did you see her push me?
Yeah, she's like, I can't live like this. And so then we just cut to Mary being sent away.
She's going to Scotland.
Yeah, but her dad is like, I don't want you to think that this is a punishment. I realize that life is hard here at home right now. You are clashing with your stepmom. You've got bigger dreams right now, and I can sense that you're kind of trapped here. So this is an opportunity. It's not a punishment. So she's going to be staying with a family friend, Baxter.
Mr. Baxter.
Yeah.
And, well, he even notes that after he read her diary, he's like, most of your writings, it's an imitation. You need to find your own voice.
Yeah.
As the writing courses I've been to.
Yeah, so that's, positive encouragement from her dad. And he's like, I think you'll thrive there.
Which is good. We love to see it.
Yeah.
But however, Claire's not happy with this. She doesn't want her sister to be gone.
Yeah, they definitely have a bond, and I think Claire's a little younger and a little less mature, and I think she's really kind of losing a sort of surrogate mother figure. You know, I mean, she's got her mom, but like I think Mary takes care of her. You know, I mean, we just had Mary helping her after she had a nightmare and stuff. So like, yeah, she's definitely losing a lot with Mary leaving.
Yeah, it seems like Mary Jane Claremont, the stepmom, is she's just trying to. She's only concerned with the finances.
Yeah.
So she's not really concerned with anything else.
Yeah. Then we get Mary arriving at Baxter's country estate, by carriage. She meets his daughter, Isabel, who...
Played by Maisie Williams.
Yeah. And they hit it off right away. That night, Mary wakes Isabel up and is like, I can't sleep. It's too quiet here. I'm used to the hustle and bustle of London.
Right. Isabel's like, I got you, fam. Let's go do a seance under a tree.
Yeah. Yep. So they're walking in the forest. They both have dead moms, so they're kind of bonding about that. And then they try to do a seance. Then like we kind of get it sort of as a montage from here. We get a lot of scenes of them walking through the forest on various days,
drinking wine.
Mm-hmm. And yeah,
they're what, no older than 15 at this point, maybe 16.
Yeah, something around there.
Yeah.
And they're picnicking. They're discussing how beautiful Scotland is. Mary's like, I really like it here because it's nice to have an excuse to just like go out and explore the world. Like I don't feel like I really had those opportunities in London. And Isabel's like, you can't wait for invitations to experience life in the world. Yeah. Like you got to just go out and do it.
Life lessons, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Later that night, Baxter is throwing a party, it's kind of like a salon. Mm-hmm. It's like various poets and writers sort of performing their works before, this group of people.
It's like a, jam session where everyone's a poet?
Yeah, pretty much. So everybody's kind of watching performances, and then somebody walks in, this very handsome young man, and people are discussing like, oh, that's the rebellious poet Percy Shelley. He's very controversial and speaks his mind and says stuff that the establishment doesn't like.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of like a rock star before that was a thing.
Right. He aspires to be what Lord Byron will be in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. But Mary's definitely really taken with him, and then pretty much right after that, Baxter leads him over and is like, hey, let me introduce you to the poet Percy Shelley. So they start kind of chatting and instantly hit it off. They're discussing writing.
Yeah, he loves both of the parents' works, both of her parents.
Yeah, and he asks if she's written anything, and she says, I haven't written anything substantial yet, but I want to.
Now, is it me, or does she place down Lord Byron's, nameplate at this moment, but he never shows up?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because they're given the task of putting the nameplates at the dinner table, right. And so they're continuing.
Which in this movie is a very Byron thing to do, is just not show up where he's invited.
Yeah, definitely.
If a place wants me there, I'm too cool.
And so while they're doing that, then Baxter comes back and is like, Percy, you're wanted. Like, it's time for you to perform something.
Yeah, it's your recitation time. Let's go.
Yeah. Shelley kind of, starts walking over and they're like, do you have work with you? And he's like, well, actually, I'm just going to recite something from a newfound inspiration, and kind of gives Mary a knowing look.
Right. Which, come on, man. I respect the game. But you're laying it on a little thick here, right? Yeah,
and then of course, he recites this love poem, and Mary is blushing, and Isabel's sitting there with her. They're all they're teen girls. They're really excited that this cute boy is interested in Mary. Yeah, it's like he literally wrote a song just for her. Mm-hmm. It's not something that he's been playing away every night for the past 2 weeks. Right. Yeah. And then the next day, there's just a group that's going for a walk, including Mary and Isabel and Percy. Baxter's there as well. They're discussing the concept of God and the poetry of Coleridge. Mary and Percy are like, yeah, Coleridge is kind of boring. It's old people poems, basically. Right. And I like how Shelley subtly goes, what is it he exactly says to her? Someone of your age? What is your age, by the way? Yeah. And she's like, I know why you're asking that. Yeah. So, consent laws, baby. Yeah, so they're very flirty. They're having fun together. Later, again, we get a lot of pastoral shots of the Scottish countryside. Mary is reading Shelley's poetry. Isabel bursts into the room and is like, we just received a letter. There's bad news in London.
Uh-oh. What's going on in London?
So Mary reads the letter, and it turns out that Claire is deathly ill, and they need Mary to return home right away to care for her.
Right. And then, so Mary asks Isabel to tell her dad, I say goodbye, versus her actually telling her dad herself, because that's polite, I would think.
Yeah.
And then Maisie Williams is out of this movie, baby.
Yeah, that's it for her.
They couldn't afford her after that. Just a couple scenes.
So we just pretty much cut to Mary arriving back at home. Godwin is like, we're glad to have you back. And she's like, I was happy in Scotland.
Right. Why'd you bring me back?
Yeah, you can tell she's sad to be returning home. But of course she is worried about Claire, so she rushes up to check on her. And we find out Claire was faking it.
Absolutely faking it. What a little shit.
Mm-hmm. She just needed an excuse to get Mary to come back home.
Right. And Mary's like, I thought you were sick. And she's like, well, I was for a bit. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so Mary's pretty upset.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary's not happy about that. But we see then, like, it kind of montages again. We see a lot of scenes of Mary at the shop, like, working, but she's always reading Shelley's poetry while she's doing all sorts of other things. And then we find out Godwin is going to bring a man home to dinner who, it's not, like, outright said, but it's kind of implied that this guy might be a suitor for Mary. And she's like, I'm not interested. Not looking for a suitor.
Well, they discuss him as a protege to Godwin. He's going to be his new protege.
Yeah. Then this protege shows up at dinner, and it's Percy.
Oh, no!
Yep. And, like, they just kind of have to play it off like they're being introduced for the first time.
Yeah. I love it, by the way. But, they're talking about how good Percy's publishing's already going. So everyone's kind of confused why he wants to be the protege of Godwin. He's obviously doing well.
Yeah, but he's like, you're kind of a foremost thinker on, a lot of topics that interest me, and I'm happy to pay. And of course, we know Godwin is in need of money, so he's like, well, yeah, pay, sure. Well, I'll teach you. That's fine. Right. So yeah, they have dinner, and then Godwin's like, Mary, why don't you give Shelley a tour of the bookshop?
Especially my original Greek copy of the Iliad, which. Original Greek, really? I mean, it might be in Greek, but I don't know if I trust that.
Yeah, that would be really, really old. But so, yeah, Mary, of course, gives him a tour, and Percy tells her that, this is all a ruse to be able to see Mary. Like, he's not really in need of being a protege, but yeah, he wants to be around Mary again.
Right, and so what are they going to do? They do a little kissing? And Claire just walks in and is like, Dad kind of wants to see Percy, so you guys do what you're doing.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, we'll be right there. Why don't you let him know we're on our way? And they send her away and kind of continue to flirt and discuss. They talk about, Mary's parents they're well documented as having like radical views on love, free love,
especially polyamory.
Mm-hmm. Percy asks Mary how she feels about that, and she's like, yeah, I feel the same way. Everyone should be free to love who they want, when they want. There should be no restrictions on love.
Like, when she was rattling off that her mom just ran after a married dude to be in a menage a trois, I was like, oh, this is a joke. No, this is not a joke. This is very serious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, her parents only ever actually married because of societal expectations. They did not want Mary to have to live as a bastard. Like, they wanted to make her legitimate in the eyes of society.
Because at that point, it obviously was really rough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You didn't really get any good jobs. You usually ended up, if you were a guy working on docks or killing people or whatever you needed to do to make ends meet, you probably weren't going to be a published author.
Right. Percy's like, all right, well, I'd like to see you tomorrow. And she's like, I know just the place. So we see Percy arriving at the graveyard, and Mary is tending to her mother's grave.
Yeah. Which is a neat little touch.
Yeah. She's taking it, like, this is her special place. So, like, that she's definitely feeling a connection to him right away.
Right. And her dad even taught her how to read and write by tracing her mom's name. Which, very, very Mary Shelley.
Right. And so then we just cut to the two of them. They're running through the rain. They rush into like a church to shelter from the storm.
They just do blasphemy all over the place.
Yeah. They're both atheists, so like this is just a building to get out of the rain. There's no reverence there. They drink some communion wine. They're just kind of like talking, and then they hear a priest come in and they run and hide behind a pew, and then they're just kind of like kissing
in the church.
And like to kind of really lean into like what's going on here, the camera just like cuts to a shot of the Virgin Mary as if she's watching them disapprovingly. And of course we also, we've got Mary Shelley here, or, Mary Godwin here, who is a Virgin Mary as well.
Right.
I think the next scene is Godwin talking to Percy about his recently published work, Queen Mab, and like the whole family's kind of congratulating him on this great new work.
Yeah.
Specifically, like Godwin's like, this is an important challenge to society's superstitions, and Mary's like, hopefully it'll be more well received than your previous treatise on like which Queen Mab is also is about the merits of atheism, but it's hidden a little bit more in a narrative story rather than just being an essay.
We'll learn that the reason why he isn't so explicit about it is because the last time he was explicit, he got kicked out of, what was it, Oxford?
Yeah. So this time, it's still about atheism, but like, it's buried in some like narrative work, so it's not as obvious. And Godwin seems to think that's good. That'll introduce these ideas to society in a more palatable way.
Right. Yeah, you definitely can't just outright approach people because they don't like that. They like you to bury those ideas a little bit for them. Yeah.
Percy's getting ready to leave, and he's like, Mary, I hope you enjoy the book. And then he like slips her a note as he's leaving.
Very, very smooth.
Yeah, this is cute, like teen love, which results in Mary and Claire. They rush out into the street where they can read, away from their family's prying eyes.
He's like, read it when you're alone, and then Claire's like, bullshit. We're reading this right now.
Yeah. And of course, it's a love poem. So they're all like excited about that. Like, Mary's reading it. She's like out of breath by like how passionate the poem is.
But what's this weird lady that just rocks up and staring daggers at Mary? What's that about?
Yeah, and so she introduces herself as Harriet Shelley.
Uh-oh. That last name, that's dangerous. And why she got that little kid with her, Anthony?
Yeah, so she's like, I am Percy's wife, and this is his child.
Oh, no.
Mary's a little surprised. She didn't know that Percy had a wife or a child.
Right, and she's like, I'm here to see my husband. Where's he?
But Mary plays it off pretty well. She's just like, he's not here right now. And it's pretty clear Harriet knows something's up, but Mary's not going to give her, she's just like, he works for my father, nothing else. We're acquainted, but that nothing more.
Well, she pretty much tells Mary as such because she's like, yeah, I ran away with him with all of his fucking smooth talk too, and, we were going to live out like rebels and all this other stuff, and I'm saddled with a baby now. Where's he at?
Yeah. Of course, Mary kind of sends her on her. She's like, "Well, if next time we see him, we'll tell him that you're looking for him."
Right, Percy's my father's student and nothing more.
We cut to that night at dinner.
Well,
and
they run home, right? And then fucking stepmom Mary Jane sees Claire run by, and she's like, Claire, get over here.
Oh, right, yeah. So then, at dinner, Claire's mom immediately asks Percy about his wife.
Right, makes everything super fucking awkward.
Yeah, she's like, we saw your wife today. What's going on there?
She's very pretty.
Yeah, and Percy's like, yes, I am married. Mary looks pretty hurt to hear him confirm that.
Yeah, he's pretty shook up too, though.
He definitely did not want Mary to learn this way. But he's like, we're married in name only. I support her. I support my child. But, I feel it's an intolerable tyranny to bind people together when their affections have faded.
Ain't that some smooth ass shit? Or trying to be smooth?
Yeah. So, of course, this is what he was talking to Mary about, her parents' beliefs. He does not think that you should be required to love someone that you don't love anymore.
Makes sense. I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, divorce was not, something really in the cards at this time. Yeah. So after dinner, Mary she confronts Claire and is like, you told your mom, so you're causing me trouble. I wish you hadn't done that.
I like how Claire's like, I had to, it's my mom.
Yeah. Later that night, Mary is in the shop by herself, and Percy appears. And she's like, not having it. She's still upset about everything. And he's like, I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to feel the pressure of like having to do what society wants you to do. You didn't have to think about propriety. You were able to just live and love as you wanted to.
Or be aware of my bullshit.
Yeah. And Mary's like, that's not fair. Like, if propriety wasn't a concern for me, like, you should have let me make that choice myself.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, well, then make the choice. Like, now you know, you have all the information. Live the way that you said you want to live, and let's run away.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
And Mary just doesn't answer. She just kind of, like, stares him down, and he leaves. And we cut to, like, that night, Mary and Claire up together, and Mary's like, this house is stifling me. I don't want to be here anymore. I feel trapped.
Well, it's even worse now that Shelley just won't leave, right?
Yeah. Claire's like, yeah, well, at least you got to go to Scotland for a little bit. I've never been outside of our little community.
Right. Promise me the next time you leave, you're going to take me with you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and Mary agrees to that. A couple days later, Percy is leaving the shop early. He's just got to, he's like, I got to go. I'm not feeling well. And as soon as he leaves, her stepmom kind of like cruelly kind of pokes at Mary. Like, she knows what's going on and is just trying to make it unpleasant.
Well, it's almost like Percy is going to go to Mary because he sees her, and she's like literally blocking him from getting to her. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, maybe you need to go somewhere, Percy. And like you said, she goes to Mary, and she's like, "You're just like your mother, who was wanton, her wanton ways." And it's like, "Oh, okay." And I do like how Mary is like, "Nah, bitch, get out of here."
Yeah, she is not having that. The stepmom talks about like the family's reputation, and Mary's like, "I don't care about the family's reputation. I just care about my own life. Like, it's not my responsibility to make you look good in the community."
Right. Once again, a very progressive.
She says something about like, this family and its reputation is a cage around the fire in my soul.
There you go. Fair enough.
Yeah. So she rushes up to her room and finds a poem from Percy that she had before, and rereads it. Finally, like, clicks that like this is her chance. She does really love him. She's not concerned about reputation or propriety. So she's going to run away.
Hell yeah. She's getting the hell out of there, right?
Yeah, so she just rushes to the graveyard, and Percy knew. So he's there waiting for her. Mm-hmm. Of course, they rush into each other's arms and kiss. This is like, like a big, romance moment in the movie.
Right. And then immediately they're telling her father, we want to be a couple. Not get married, but we want to be a couple.
Yeah, and he does not approve. And they're like, but we're living out your beliefs. Like, you did this. This is... we're not doing anything that you haven't written extensively about.
I mean, to be fair, got him.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, but you're not prepared to live with the consequences of that. Like, I believe these things in theory, but I know what society is, and it doesn't work in practice right now. We have to keep pushing for it, but you're going to be... you're going to be suffering a lot by trying to live this way.
Right, and because stepmom is stepmom and stepmom's there, she's like, yeah, you need to watch out because your dad's beliefs were warped. His ideas were warped. Mm-hmm. Which, that's kind of insulting to your own husband, I think.
Yeah, and they talk about, like, these beliefs tortured your mother. They're probably responsible for her death. Mm-hmm. Godwin's like, Percy, get out of here. You're not welcome in this house anymore. You're no longer my protege. And once Percy leaves, he talks to Mary and he says, if you see him again, you will no longer have the love of a father.
Which, damn, man.
Yeah, that's an intense threat. Which I feel, that's still, that's, now we see that with, like, LGBTQ people more, but, like, parents withholding love from their children because they don't live up to some expectation they have is unfortunately still all too real.
Yeah. Sounds like a certain book I know.
Yeah, so of course that does not sway Mary, and that night she starts to sneak out, but Claire sees her and is like, take me with you.
Right. She's like, remember that promise you made? Live up to that shit. Let's go.
Yeah. So Mary's like, okay, fine. And so they run out into the streets where Percy is waiting in a carriage. Again, he and Mary kiss, and he's like, oh, Claire's coming. And Mary's like, yeah, I couldn't leave her behind. And he's like, yeah, I guess I should have known you're kind of a package deal at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, and he kind of gives Claire a little bit of a glance, so it's like, oh, oh, okay. I know where this one's going.
Yep.
So they stumble out drunk of the carriage.
And he, Percy has rented a small apartment for them.
St. Pancras?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and he's like, this is just temporary. I know this isn't perfect, but, it'll do for now. I'll get you somewhere better soon. Mm-hmm. And Mary's like, no, it is perfect. Like, this is, I'm free. I'm with you. That's all that matters to me. So, it's that young and in love thing. Like, we can live, paycheck to paycheck because we'll have our love to keep us from being hungry or whatever.
Ideals. Those are nice.
Yeah. And then we get Mary and Percy having sex, which blurs into scenes of both Mary and Percy individually writing. And I thought that was pretty artful. We're having various ways of creating things here. And they're both exploring their passions in different ways, which I thought that was well done. And then we cut to later. Mary and Claire are reading ghost stories together.
Drunkenly, which is amazing.
Yeah, they're just drinking straight out of a wine bottle. And then Percy bursts in, and he's upset. He's kind of being a dick to them. He's like, oh, I see you finished off the wine.
Yeah.
But we find out that he's upset because a publisher turned down his work. And his father also cut him off from his inheritance because of
his new
the scandals. So he's getting worried. They've got no money coming in. He's kind of rude to them, but it's understandable during why he's feeling a little bit under the gun at the moment.
I mean, to a point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He also needs to stow it to himself for a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah. So then we see a little later, Mary is shopping at the market and bumps into her dad, who's also having money trouble because he's trying to sell off his prize copy of the Iliad.
In the original Greek.
Mm-hmm. She's like, you're selling that? And he's like, there's consequences for actions. And
right,
sometimes...
it's time to let go of things, even those that we hold dear. Okay, bro!
Yeah.
Damn.
He's basically like, I've got to live with my actions and my decisions, and you have to do the same. But he changes his mind about selling the book and leaves with it.
Which, hope that's hopeful, maybe.
Yeah. So then Mary arrives home a little later, and things are looking up. Percy's feeling good. He has set up this elaborate chemistry set for Mary to play with because he knows she loves science. And he's also bought her a new dress.
Yeah, he's stumbled into a lot of money all of a sudden.
Yeah, and Mary's like, I thought we weren't doing well. You're buying dresses and chemistry sets, and he's like, yeah, but I've also gotten us a new house, so
right. With
I am
servants.
in the money at the moment. Yeah, you'll get to meet the servants, and so we cut to them arriving at this new house. Everybody's smiling and happy.
Claire's fucking stoked. She's like, I've never had servants before. I'm usually the servants.
Right. So then we have Mary and Percy having sex again, and then a little later, Mary's stayed up and she is writing in her journal, and she's discontent. Her writing is not growing the way that she wants it to.
Right.
She feels like she should be progressing in her abilities.
Yeah, she's unable to accomplish her dreams.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's hard for anybody who is writing, I feel the same way when I write. It's frustrating, but it's even worse when your partner is one of the most popular writers of the day, which is kind of exacerbated in the next scene where they're walking in the park together and a fan bumps into Percy and wants him to autograph something for her.
Right, her poetry book?
Yeah, I think so. Some kind of little book.
Yeah.
And so, Percy is famous enough, in an age before television that, people recognize him on the street and want his autograph.
Which, that's wild. Do you think that really actually happened? Because I feel like, with the portraits, it could be hit or miss.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I don't know, maybe she saw him perform at a salon or something.
She may have actually met him or seen him.
Yeah, but it definitely seems like it was a less common thing to happen back then.
Yeah. But we also get another announcement.
Yeah, so Mary informs Percy that she is pregnant.
Yeah, he's happy. And she is actually surprised that he is happy.
Yeah. And she's nervous because she's like, I never had a mother, so I don't really know what mothers do. I don't know how to be a mom.
And while I appreciate Percy's sentiment in this moment. He's like, just do it by instinct. Just fly by the seat of your pants. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like he's just comforting her, like, oh, yeah, everybody figures it out. You'll figure it out. You're smart.
Yeah.
And then to like really compound a lot of things happening all at once, they immediately bump into Harriet again.
Playing with her daughter.
Yeah, and of course she sees them and like snatches up her daughter and like rushes away.
Yeah, and Percy runs off.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on for Mary right now. She's, her Percy being like, yeah, I'm excited about a kid, and then being like, oh wait, he has a kid.
Right.
And he doesn't want anything to do with it. So, yeah, she's got a lot to think about at the moment.
Rough.
Which leads into that night Mary having a nightmare where she's like hearing a crying baby, and it's like there's like a little, I don't know what are those called,
Bassinet.
like the little rocking, bassinet. And we can't see the baby, we just hear crying coming from it.
Yeah.
And then like Mary wakes up from the nightmare and Claire bursts in. She has also had a nightmare that there's a stranger in her room, but she thinks it might be a real stranger in the room, not just a nightmare.
Someone's there. Hey Percy, why don't you come take a look at who's there? And he's more than happy to help. He's like, yes, I will see what's there. There's no one there. Oh, well, I have to help Claire get to sleep. Not suspicious at all.
Yeah.
And even Mary's like, oh, that's some fuckery, dude.
Yep. Yeah. She lays there in bed, and it's like she knows exactly what's going on. And then we just cut to the next morning as Percy tries to sneak and get into bed in like full daylight.
Fails.
Yeah. Mary wakes up and he's like,
she finally
Claire,
went to sleep.
Yeah, she just finally went to sleep.
I'm sure she just finally went to sleep.
Right. Yeah. And he's like, Mary, I love you. And she's like, yeah, I know, but yeah, she there's definitely a lot of jealousy going on in this scene. Yeah. Like she is suspicious, and with good reason.
Yeah, no doubt.
To make matters worse, like the next scene, Mary is coming downstairs.
Claire's feet are on Percy. It's like, bare feet.
Yeah, like they're laying on a love seat together, and yeah, her feet are in his lap.
Yeah.
And like servants are all bustling around. Mary's like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "We're planning a party,
a dinner party."
Yeah. One of the servant girls comes in and is like, "How many people are going to be here?" And Claire's like, 10,
no, 12,
maybe 12, something like that.
Yeah. As many people as we can get in here.
Yeah. And Percy's like, I know I'm still waiting on my advance, but I borrowed against my father's estate.
Right.
So we can throw a big party because I really want to celebrate my friend Thomas Hogg, who just got published. Yep. Then it's just like later that night, we get the party, and it is just
those four.
Mary, Percy, Claire, and Thomas Hogg.
Yep. That's where we learned that their novel for atheism got them both expelled.
Yeah, because I think Mary apologizes, like, sorry nobody else is here, I guess we're more scandalous than we thought.
Percy's like, oh yeah, we know about that.
yeah, we're used to scandal, it's no big deal. They even say, like, they published it anonymously, but they still managed to get in trouble. And Mary's like, why would you ever publish anything anonymous? Like, what's the point if it doesn't have your name on it?
Right.
Thomas is like, oh, so you're a writer too? And Percy, like, before Mary even can say anything, he says, soon Mary will produce a work that will surpass us all.
Right, being the baby, not her actual work.
Yeah, but turns out, obviously he's right in more ways than one. Like,
it's true.
She will certainly produce a work that will surpass any of his work.
By leaps and bounds.
Mm-hmm. And then they're like, Claire, what do you do?
Right, what's your thing, deal? Claire? You're clearly not a writer. What's your thing?
And it turns out her thing is singing. So she sings a song that's kind of like a pub kind of song. Yeah. Pretty and everybody's having a good time. They're all enjoying listening to her sing and, enjoying each other's company. I think then we just cut to like another day. Mary's home alone. And she's looking over, like, the house ledgers. Yeah, like the budget and everything. Thomas shows up to visit, and she's like, oh, Percy's not here.
Well, he's like, I didn't come here for Percy.
Yeah, he immediately tries to kiss her, and she, like, pushes him away and is like, I'm not into that. And we just cut to later. Percy and Claire arrive home and find Mary by herself and very clearly distraught. Yeah. And she's like, I need to talk to you, Percy.
Content warning for that, maybe. It was very quick, so maybe not.
Yeah, it's I mean, like Thomas just tries to kiss her and she pushes him away, and that's all we see.
Yeah.
She sends Claire away and tells Percy, what happened, that that Thomas made an advance on her and that she rebuked it.
Right. Now, logically, Anthony, I would think that his response would be like, fuck that guy. I'm going to kick his butt, normally. No. Percy has an entirely different response. Why didn't you bang him?
Yeah, he seems disappointed in her that she didn't do anything.
Right. Why wouldn't you consider it? And I'm like,
yeah.
Did Hogg give you money for her? What happened?
Yeah, and she's like, you're not upset? And he's like, no, I don't own you. Love is free. And Mary's like, well, yeah, sure, but I'm not interested in him.
Yeah.
And it's like Percy... I mean, what's going on here is Percy wants her to...
condone his lifestyle.
Yeah, he wants her to be polyamorous so that he can feel...
good about
that his polyamory is approved as well.
Right. But she's like, nope, just you, buddy.
Yeah, she says, he's like, you're not living your beliefs. And she's like, yes, I am. I don't have to love anyone. I can if I want, but my truth is that I only love you.
Right. Bust out you're being a hypocrite.
Yeah, that's super shitty.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing about polyamory, or what they call free love at this time, is like Mary said, I have the freedom to love someone else if I want, but I also have the freedom to not if that's what I want. Yep. And Percy is really just using this as a way to get what he wants and not thinking about what Mary actually wants.
Right. Which is the running theme with Percy.
Yeah. The next thing we see is Mary alone. She's journaling, and she writes, I was brought into this world to be abandoned, which is some heavy shit. A girl whose mom died 10 days after she was born, and now she's got this partner who seems to want to abandon her as well. Obviously, we're seeing some early, signs of her writing, in terms of Frankenstein here.
Right. But also, here's the thing. Claire's been dismissed this whole fucking time. Because even Hogg's like, what's your trick? What can you do? Not, what writing do you do? It's just all right, you've got to be able to do something or they wouldn't keep you here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Percy comes in to check on her just to see if she's still upset. And he's like, are you not cold? It's really cold. You don't have the fire going?
She's like, nah, I got my hypocrisy and my cloak of disappointment to keep me warm.
Yeah, I was like, hell yeah. That's such a good comeback.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And then Percy's like, all right, well, I'll tell Hogg not to call here again. And she's like, I already told him with my fist.
Fair.
You don't fuck with Mary Shelley.
Nope.
Percy apologizes, and he's like, I've always lived a free love lifestyle, and I thought that you felt the same, but I won't pressure you anymore. So right. Percy is kind of learning from his mistakes here. This feels like a genuine apology. The next day, we see as part of his apology, he's taken Mary to this variety show thing.
He's like, hey, to make you feel better, let's go out tonight. And immediately Claire busts in, full dress and everything. She's like, when are we going?
Right. Because it turns out that it's did Claire perform at this, or is she just dreaming of?
She was dreaming about it, kind of, with the poem. It's Phantasmagoria is what they're going to see, I guess. But
which Phantasmagoria is the name of the book that they that the group later reads at Lake Geneva. But here it's kind of a variety show thing.
Yeah.
I think people are reading some ghost stories, but then we also have
galvanism.
Yeah, we get this galvanism demonstration.
But they also run into somebody really important early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they bump in the lobby. They bump into Lord Byron.
Full rock star makeup, man. Eyeliner, a little bit of lip liner.
Yeah, and Claire is very taken with him right away.
Mm-hmm. And he seems he's all right. I dig this a little bit.
He's there with a couple other women, but he's very flirty with Claire, and what he gives her some kind of little.
No, that's later.
Oh, right. Okay.
This time he gives her a little flick of his tongue.
Oh, yes. So, yeah, then we are in the performance, and we see the galvanism demonstration, which Mary is very entranced by.
This is her thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the frog, like, the dead frog twitches and everything. And Mary's like, do you think that could be really possible? Could this be used to bring back the dead?
And he's like, maybe.
And then we see time has passed now, and Percy and Mary are cuddling with their baby.
Oh, no, we skipped the end of the presentation where Byron's like, hey! And he walks up to Claire and he's like, here's my digits, and puts them in her
Oh,
boobs.
right, yeah. Yeah. Which, like, I mean, I don't know, because they don't have phone numbers. I don't know what exactly he's giving her, but...
Probably his address.
Yeah. Yeah, so then we get this scene with Percy and Mary enjoying, like, time with their baby.
Yeah.
And Percy's like, we're just gonna be like the perfect trio, the three of us.
Just us,
and
not anyone else. Not Claire.
Yeah, and Claire, she's just like staring him down. She's pissed. Which, as we've kind of implied and hasn't been explicit yet, like, obviously Percy and Claire have some kind of relationship as well, and so she's feeling...
But she's more of a third wheel than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also, Claire decides, you know what, I'm going to take back some autonomy, and Roxanne's putting on the red light tonight. And she gets dressed up in her sexiest outfit and goes to see Lord Byron.
Yeah. Later, we just have Mary and Claire sitting together with the baby.
Loving on the baby.
And Percy comes bursting in, and he's like, the creditors are coming. We're fucked. We gotta
go.
We gotta grab whatever you can carry, and we gotta go right now.
Right. And Mary's like, no, the baby's not feeling well. We shouldn't take her out into the cold.
Yeah, it's raining. The baby's, it's not good, but, Percy's like, we have to. Like, we don't have a choice.
Right. Versus deal with my responsibilities. I'd rather run, thank you. Mm-hmm. Back to St. Pancras we go.
Yeah, and then we just immediately cut to Mary mourning the baby who has died.
Right. So, we did skip that they were the baby was coughing the entire time they were running in the rain. So they were giving us shorthand for the baby dying. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if that baby's that fragile, I don't think it would have survived anyway.
Yeah, and that kind of, I think that's the thing, is the baby was near death anyway. But now Mary is blaming herself and Percy because they took the baby out in the rain.
To be fair, yeah.
Yeah, and, Percy is like, that, the baby was sick. It's not our fault. These things happen.
Even the doctor said the baby wasn't long for this world.
Yeah, and Mary's like, I'm not interested in being comforted by you right now. Like, I want to mourn my baby. Like, I want to be sad. I want to feel right now. Yeah. Then we get some scenes of Percy writing poetry about the baby. That's kind of how he's dealing with his grief. And Mary continues to have nightmares. She dreams about the baby being alive, and then... Right,
it almost seemed like it was real, though, that Claire was singing a song to Mary about the baby, or to the baby, and then all of a sudden the baby just starts crying. And I'm like, the baby's fine? What? No, the baby didn't miraculously revive. It is just a dream.
So she gets out of bed and starts writing down the dream that she had. But then she hears Percy and Claire. They're whispering in the hallway.
Turns out Lord Byron has invited everyone to Geneva.
Yeah, and Mary's like, what? What do you mean he invited? And she's like, do you think you're the only one who can attract a poet?
Right, and Mary's like, well, obviously I'm not the only one that can attract a poet. like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah, she's like, I'm well aware of your abilities. And Claire's like, I'm pregnant. And Mary's like, who's the father?
Right. Damn it, Percy. Nope, this time it's Byron.
Yeah. Percy gets home and is like, he's excited about the invitation. And Mary's like, I don't know, I'm not ready to, like, go celebrate. Like, I'm still mourning. Percy's like, yeah, but you could mourn there. And, like, maybe, getting away from this home, you don't have to forget the baby, but you can live on and raise her spirit.
It sounds nice, but coming from Percy, it's also like, I just want to fucking go to hang out with Lord Byron.
Yeah, it definitely, it is that, people talk about, like, the person who died would want you to move on and live a full and happy life. Yeah. But yeah, it definitely, it's like everything Percy does, everything he tries. Yeah, it's all manipulation. It's all self-serving. It's all what he can get out of any kind of deal. Right. We get, like, just later, them all arriving.
In this massive fucking estate.
Yeah, and Byron comes rushing out and, like, immediately just, like, yells, Percy Shelley, and, like, this, like, deranged, like, it sounds like he's mad.
Right, he's gonna fight this guy. And then Percy's like, what the fuck did I do? And he's like, here's what you did, baby, and kisses him right on the lips.
Yeah. Is this when he's like, what are you all doing here? Or is that a little later where he mentions that they weren't actually invited?
No, he basically, he does tackle Claire and, like, swings her around a little bit. And he's like, well, I'll just remember that the next time I mention plans to her, that equates to an invitation.
Yeah, and obviously Mary is mortified that they weren't actually invited.
Right.
But Byron's like, no, it's cool. Like, it'll be nice to have the company. Like, I'm bored out of my mind. All I've got here with me is...
the sad sack Polidori.
Yeah, and I think then we just have, like, the entire group having dinner. They're all kind of socializing.
Right.
They're all kind of having a good time.
And fucking Byron is just hating on Polidori. He's like, yeah, this guy was my physician. He helped me with my sleep disorders, and now he is a walking sleep disorder.
Yeah, he's super shitty to Polidori. And then he's like, hey, Percy, why don't you join me in the parlor?
Right, just
and
you and
Mary's
me.
Like,
Nobody else.
Yeah, because Mary starts to get up and he's like, no. Like, you guys hang out here. We're going to go in there. Definitely implicate. I mean, it's pretty well known that both Byron and Percy were bisexual. Yeah. And so there's definitely implication that they're going to have some alone time.
Yeah. You know what? They're honestly perfect for each other. Mm-hmm. But I feel like they couldn't stand each other if it was to actually go into a relationship. It would last like 5 seconds, and then they would both like shoot each other or something.
Yeah. So then we would just kind of like have a montage of just like a lot of time passing with them at the villa.
Yeah, Byron and Percy doing a lot of drugs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're doing drugs, they're drinking, and they're like really passionately like broing out over poetry. Like
I've never seen such a thing.
Like, you know, it's like Percy will be reciting and then Byron's like, no, what about this word? And they're like, hell yeah, they're like getting all excited. Like, right. Yeah, it's funny.
I feel like if it was, they were like in a band and they're writing the most badass music they ever could, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely the vibe. Yeah. We also get a lot of like PDA with Byron and Claire. And Mary just mostly looking miserable. Like, she is not having as good a time here as everyone else is.
Right, but she's finding a kindred spirit in John Polidori.
Mm-hmm. He finds an article about galvanism, and it's like, I know you're really interested in science. I think you might like this. You know, they kind of, like, bond on that. And then we get another, like, a brief scene of Mary and Percy having sex, which is kind of, it feels like maybe Mary is excited about the relationship building with Polidori and it's sort of revitalizing her interest in Percy as well, which is kind of a part of like polyamory, is, you know, like having something new makes you excited about your existing partner and everything. Right. So that definitely makes sense, because that scene with her and Percy is bookended by the galvanism conversation and then another conversation with her and Polidori
about Henry Fuseli.
Mm-hmm.
And the portrait, what is it called? The Nightmare?
Yeah.
It's the one with the goblin sitting on a dude's chest. Or incubus.
Yeah. And they talk about, like, Polidori's like, I know you just recently lost your daughter. I'm really sorry about that. Mary's like, thanks him for that. And he's like, maybe I shouldn't have brought that up. I'm sorry. And she's like, no, it's nice that someone's acknowledging that she existed and that I am sad about it. Like, everyone else is just pretending like it never happened. But yeah, then we see the painting. Byron comes in and is talking about it. He's mansplaining this painting to Mary. Like, this is what it means and everything. And then Mary's like, yeah, the guy that painted that was my mom's first lover. I'm well aware of everything about this painting.
Right, she almost OD'd on laudanum because of that guy.
Yeah, so I know more about what's going on in that painting than you do.
Fair enough.
Mary says something like, you know, knowing that about my mother it's hard to process. Like, even somebody as strong as her, you know, she was still vulnerable to love. Like, love could still hurt her and break her down. To the point that she wanted to die. Yeah,
and we actually get a legit moment of respect from Byron, which is, I think, is unique in this one, other than him kissing Percy. He's like, you know what? I always wanted a woman to be able to understand what I'm saying, but not smart enough to be able to form her own opinions, which is like, I'm a sexist piece of shit. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And he's like, but you could probably prove me wrong.
Later on, everybody's kind of sitting around. They're bored. There's a thunderstorm going on. This is our moment, you know. Byron's like, something to pass the time. Why don't we all compete?
Claire literally screams out, I'm tired of transcribing your fucking poems.
Yeah. And so he's like, you know, we can compete. We can all write ghost stories. And Claire's like, what about me? And he's like, yeah, then you can transcribe the ghost stories.
Right, because you clearly can't write.
You know, he's just cruel to her, and she's like, and she says something like, you know, I can't believe you're treating me like this. You know, I'm your lover, and he's like, oh, silly. No, you're not.
You're not my lover. You're silly Dilettant.
Yeah, you're a silly little girl. Obviously, that's upsetting, and Claire rushes out into the storm. Mary gets up and races after her.
So I don't know if anyone could tell, but Byron is clearly not a good person.
No, not in the least. So yeah, Mary finds Claire like laying on the ground in the rain, kind of like comforts her, gets her up.
But we also get Percy getting a letter telling him he should come back to London.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Mary tells her, like, don't let his cruelty hurt you. You're stronger than you realize.
Yeah, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Mary brings her back into the house. That night, Mary has a nightmare, and she sees this mad doctor in the corner of her bedroom reviving a corpse.
And of course, it has a bunch of stitches. And
yeah, like this. We had to get a little bit of a Frankenstein revival scene in this movie, so that was a nice way to kind of squeeze that in there. And as soon as Mary wakes up from her nightmare, she immediately sets to writing down what she dreamed.
Yeah. So the next morning, we have kind of a breakfast scene. Polidori is like, yeah, what's up with Claire? Why is she missing? And then, why is Percy missing?
Yeah, and then Percy comes stumbling in. He's, like, just completely drunk. And, like, he sits down, and Polidori's like, so the contest we talked about last night, I've started. I'm working on a story. It's called The Vampire.
Okay, now fuck Byron and Percy, because they both laugh at him over this fucking thing.
Mm-hmm. Polidori's like, what, you don't believe in vampires? And Percy's like, no more than I believe in physicians.
Oh, you know what? And this is Polidori's moment, man, because he just slugs the shit out of Percy. Or no, I'm sorry. He says, well, Percy, you would know well about nocturnal creatures. And then Percy's like, I'm going to get up in your business. And that's when he gets smacked down.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
yeah, he calls him a nocturnal being that preys upon the vulnerable.
Right,
so,
that's
like,
right.
Yeah, it's real nice.
But Polidori gets that little lick in and, ooh, feels good.
Mm-hmm. And Byron laughs at it. Like, he's just enjoying the drama.
I mean, that's Byron's whole thing, right? Enjoy the drama.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then Polidori kind of storms out, but before he does, he looks to Mary and he says, Madam, you have my sympathy.
Fair enough.
And then Byron's like, well, that was fun, but now that that's over, I'm going to go riding because I need something thick between my legs.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then he takes some of Percy's blood off his lip and he just dots his own forehead with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's such a weirdo.
Such a fucking...
And then we get, like, Percy talking to Mary, and, like, he's like, I know you got something going on with Polidori. He's suddenly jealous, and she's like, what? Why do you care? Like, I thought this was your whole thing.
Right.
And he's like, I just got word that my wife drowned herself.
Right, and he doesn't say Harriet. He explicitly states, my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he doesn't believe the shit he's selling either.
Yeah, it seems that way. And so then Mary just kind of gets up and leaves him and goes to check on Claire. She is, in bed. She's still hurt about what happened the night before. She's like, my relationship with Byron was a mistake. Mary's, as you just said, she's kind of just like, fuck Byron and fuck Percy. Mm-hmm. Let's get out of here. Like, she just starts packing up Claire's things. She's like, we're going to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, and well, Claire reveals that she talked to Byron. And Byron's like, yeah, I'm just paying for the baby, nothing else. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mary goes downstairs and is like, tells Byron goodbye. He kind of like tries to defend himself. He's like, I never loved Claire. She never loved me. That wasn't the point. Right. A man is a man and a girl is a girl is what he says, which is just shitty.
Right. And if a young girl comes to an older man, what else is to happen, right? That's what he says, mm-hmm. which makes it worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think Claire, there's not like any sort of like statutory rape kind of thing going on here. I think Claire was consenting, mm-hmm. but I think that Byron definitely was a manipulative man who got what he wanted out of her and had no interest in anything more.
Right.
So, it's definitely not, not a good situation. And I mean, it could definitely be argued that like consent sometimes involves like expectations and Claire's were not necessarily met.
There's a reason why it's called informed consent.
Yep, just exactly. When he says, what do you think's going to happen? Mary's like, there's always choices. And Byron kind of is like taken aback by that. Like, it seems like he just kind of lives life without thinking. Like, having choices never crossed his mind.
Which, honestly, that sums him up pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's just the id, like just moving, like not. But I think this is another moment where Byron kind of is like, has some respect for Mary. He like takes his hand and like covers her eyes and then he covers up his own eyes, and then he like moves his hands so that each of them have one exposed eye that they're like looking right at each other, and he just says, "Always see."
Which he's so fucking weird, but I guess I get that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like his idea of like giving her like the advice she needs to move forward, and he's like, "I look forward to reading your work someday." So Percy actually goes with Mary and Claire, and they all head back to their little apartment where the empty bassinet is still sitting.
We also have Polidori watching out the window as they leave longingly.
Yeah. Back at the little apartment, Mary sits down to start writing, and she hears her father's voice telling her to find her own voice.
Yeah. Don't use the thoughts and words of others, right?
Yeah. So we get another montage of Mary just like obsessively writing. We get flashbacks. We see scenes of her life previously, her relationship with Percy, the loss of the baby. This scene's very artsy. We see like her words getting written on the page. We see like ink blots spreading and like turning into shapes and stuff. Like
we see a pregnant Claire.
Yeah, like her words are coming to life, you know, which is, it's kind of cool because like it's not a very dynamic thing to just see someone writing.
Right.
So they do a lot to make you feel the intensity of Mary writing.
Yeah, it's an intense scene.
Mm-hmm. But, and then of course the montage ends with her writing the end at the bottom of the page.
We got
and
there.
we see right above that the famous last line, you know, he was lost in darkness and distance.
Fair enough. And she takes this manuscript and she's like, "This is wonderful." Takes it to Percy and he's like, "It's great. It's awesome. I love it. But maybe the end could be more hopeful. Maybe the Dr. could create an angel instead of a monster, right?"
Like, yeah, we want this to be a message of hope and perfection, that mankind can achieve great heights and all this. And Mary's like, yeah, she's like, it is a message to mankind, and I haven't seen hope or perfection any time in my life, so I don't know why I would write about that.
Very goth and very honest of her.
Yeah, and Percy's like, okay, yeah, you've got a point. I'll take it to my publisher and try to pressure him into publishing it.
Nah, bullshit. You ain't taking that to nobody. I'm going to take it to the publisher.
Yeah, Mary wants to, she wants to stand on her own 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So
also,
she goes to
Percy could very well just be like, "And written by Percy Shelley."
Yeah. And so then we get the publisher who just completely sucks. Like, he's just the worst.
"You are married to Percy Shelley, right? Maybe I could have some more of your writing to confirm that this is indeed your writing."
Yeah. And she's like, "You dare question my ability to experience loss and death and betrayal?" Mm-hmm. And so she snatches the manuscript away and leaves. And then we have Mary talking to Claire about the book. Claire has just read it as well. And she says, "I've never seen a more perfect encapsulation of how it feels to be abandoned."
Fair enough.
She says, "How many more people do you think will sympathize with your creature's torments?
Right,
more than should." Yeah. And then we get another montage of, Mary taking this to so many publishers and getting rejected over and over again.
Until she finally comes upon the Lackington Group.
Mm-hmm. And they agree that they will publish it.
As long
but only on the... Yeah, it has to be published anonymously, and Percy has to write an introduction that is credited.
Right. So at least we've come a little bit of ways.
Mm-hmm. So Mary, goes and tells this to Percy... And Percy's like, "Sure, of course, I'll do anything. I'm happy to help." And Mary's angry at that. She's like, of course you're happy to put your name on my work that I'm not allowed to put my name on. He's like, "I just want it published. I think you've done great work, and I think it should be out there in the world." And she's like, "Yeah, of course you would say that because, you're a man, and it's never in question that you will be recognized. Right. I want that recognition. I want respect for what I've done." Yeah. So she's like, "Of course you wouldn't know how that feels." And they kind of argue, and it's one of those like unhappy marriage fights. Yeah, like they're fighting about one thing, and then they're fighting about everything. It's just the gateway to the fight. Mm-hmm. I think then we cut to later. We see Mary's father. He's now reading it as well, and sees
the acknowledgement to him.
Mm-hmm. So, Percy and Claire were reading the manuscript, but Godwin is reading the published work. Mm-hmm. Back at home, Mary's by herself, and I think she's cutting, newspaper clippings about the book. Is that... Mm-hmm. So she's kind of, making a scrapbook, even though her name's not on it. She knows who this praise is for, so she's hanging on to that, which I think that's nice. It's, like she's getting to get that recognition at least, if only for herself.
Yeah, fair enough. But she does get a knock on the door. And who is this? But Mr. Polidori.
Mm-hmm. And he's looking rough. He's got a black eye. He's just not looking healthy.
Yeah, he's been in a fight, it looks like. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that he also got his work published, The Vampire. However, Lord Byron did exactly what Mary thought Percy was going to do, or at least it inadvertently became the way that Byron was acknowledged to be the writer of The Vampire. Mm-hmm.
Mary's upset on his behalf. Polidori's like, Byron doesn't even want it under his name. He's embarrassed of it. He hates this work. Yeah. So we're both kind of stuck dealing with this. He points out, he's like, it's kind of funny that, like, we both wrote books about, like, narcissists who, like, prey on others, mm-hmm. and now both of our books are being credited to narcissists who prey on others.
Very effective.
Yeah. Polidori says, we've created monsters, but let's not let them devour us.
Great. Awesome. Unfortunately, according to the end of the movie, it seems like Polidori may have let his devour him.
Yeah. So, Polidori is giving her a copy of his book, and after he leaves, she opens it and sees that there is an invitation inside from her father that his bookstore is going to be holding a salon in celebration of the publication of Frankenstein, and he would like for her to be there.
Hey, it turns out her dad is a good dad.
Yeah. So we just cut to her entering the shop, and she kind of like comes in through a back entrance, so no one notices her, and so she's able to kind of listen to people talk about her work without knowing that she's there. Everyone is in awe of it. Everyone's very impressed that it's like the preeminent work. It's very important. Someone asks Percy to speak about his feelings about the work. He steps forward and is like, I think a lot of you wanted me to speak because you think I wrote this, and let me disavow you of that. I did not. He
does attribute it to Mary Shelley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he says, like, I didn't write it, but it could be said that I am responsible for it in many ways. He says that Mary wrote this and that she wrote it because of the horrible ways that he had treated her.
Fair enough. At least he owned up to it.
Yeah. He's like, the desperate loneliness that defines the creature in this. I inspired that.
Right.
So,
not wrong.
This is a really... I don't know if this happened in real life. Obviously this is a slightly fictionalized version of the story, but like this feels like a turning point where like Percy acknowledges in Mary's work, he acknowledges that like she's suffered and that Then Mary comes in and everyone sees her.
She's so touched by his kindness.
Everyone's kind of like praising her, and then they kind of have a moment together, Mary and Percy. He apologizes, and she says, I lost everything to be with you, but if I had not learned to fight through that anguish, I might not have found my voice again.
Right. She regretted nothing, or she says, I regret nothing. And they kiss. Aww.
Yeah, which, I thought that's, I think that, if you look at like people living polyamorous lifestyles today, like a big part of it is like finding that balance and learning to trust each other and learning to like be honest and all of that. And I feel like this is kind of the point where Mary realizes like, I suffered a lot, but like I made choices to be here, and you hurt me, but I still wanted to be with you, and they kind of like get to a place where they can move forward in a positive way together.
Right. And then we get the ending scene where Mary's walking down the street with a young boy. Turns out that's her son, by Percy. And she sees her father messing around with something in his window. Turns out that is a copy of Frankenstein, and it is in fact attributed to Mary Shelley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got her name on the cover.
Yeah.
And so that's our last like scene, and then we cut to, as you often do in biopics, we get like the titles that kind of tell what happened after the story.
They stayed together until Percy died at 29. Claire had a baby named Allegra. Byron only supported the baby till it died at 10. Rough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did she have any more kids, Claire?
I'm not sure about that. I don't really know much about Claire's life after this point in the story.
And then, unfortunately, John Polidori ended up taking his own life after basically the constant fucking mistreatment by Byron, and also that basically Byron took all of his fucking money from the book.
Yeah. And then we find that, Mary died at age 53. She was survived by a son and was buried beside her mother and father. Aww. And then we get this last little scene, which I thought was a really nice little touch. We see Mary just like running. It's like a younger Mary. And we hear her voice, like a voiceover of her reading the last sentence of the book, Lost in Darkness and Distance again. Yeah. So,
come on. I mean, obviously fictionalized work. Quite a few places, I'm sure. Didn't she take some like other lovers? Wasn't she actually legitimately polyamorous as well?
Yeah, I think she had like misgivings to start with, but I think eventually she did.
Had both, she was bisexual as well.
Yeah, because I actually did look up because I was curious about Thomas Hogg. Like I wasn't familiar with him, and his name was Thomas Jefferson Hogg. He did really exist, and they kind of in this made it look like he was forcing himself on her. From what I was reading, that does not seem like that was actually the case. It was more that he was attracted to her and interested, and she wasn't. But it just kind of like it seemed like more like he was like a simp than like he just kind of followed her around and wanted to be wanted her to like him, but never. It didn't seem like he had expectations that like she was just going to
almost kind of like the Polidori in the story, right? To a degree.
Yeah, I think in this case, we needed that like tension so that Mary could like have that conversation with Percy. So it makes sense to have him be a little bit more aggressive with her here.
And am I wrong? But like, I didn't think her father that she ever really dealt with monetary issues. Maybe Percy, but not like when she was younger, right? Or am I incorrect on that?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised about that too. I didn't think that was the case, and maybe it was to some degree, but I think it definitely like they needed some sort of like conflict to start things out, and it definitely made reasons for Percy being in the picture. I definitely when it comes to these kind of stories, they definitely they're telling a story. They want it to be interesting and compelling and fun, and so we're gonna fudge some details. But it's a powerful story. It's compelling. It's really well directed. Like we've been saying, there's a lot of like pretty stuff that's added into this. That a lot of times these kind of like movies, they tend to be kind of workhorse movies. That it's just like
we gotta get the beat that everyone knows.
Yeah, like all the like. The Queen one, the Elton John one, the Ray Charles one. It's kind of like the fans of these musicians, they're going to watch this movie, so we don't have to really like work hard. This movie is like actually like very artfully done. It's very beautiful. They're trying to make something special, not just rely on Mary Shelley fans to take whatever's handed in front of them, basically.
Which is sad though, because I don't think this got a really big it didn't get a really big push.
Yeah, it doesn't have like a huge following, which, for a period piece, like those movies don't tend to get really big. Unless it gets like Oscar nominations, it's probably not going to get a lot of buzz.
Which, sad. Should have.
Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I saw it around when it came out, and I haven't seen it since. But yeah, the way that like as far as we were talking about like whether Mary had lovers and stuff. Like I don't know that Mary was quite as miserable in her like relationship as this, but it like again kind of is a compelling story, and I'm sure she everybody experiences loneliness and anguish and separation from the people they love. So like using that to make the point that we have made over and over again, that like that's what the novel is about. I think that works really well, like seeing Mary suffering and using that as an inspiration to tell this story that has meant so much to other people who have been lonely and outcast. I thought that was really cool.
Absolutely. As we mentioned with Claire, she's like, maybe a little bit too many people know what that's about.
Yeah. And we're definitely among them, so yeah.
Fair enough. All right, Anthony. That's been 100 episodes.
100.
Wow, you all are crazy.
That's so many hours of us talking.
Jeez.
Well, we definitely thank you all for coming along for the ride for all this. It means a lot to us that we have so many people who listen to us every week and, check in with us on social media and follow us on Patreon and just interact with us wherever. We would not still be doing this if we hadn't gotten, so much positive feedback in various forms. So, yes, thank you all so much for the support.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Anthony. So maybe next week we could... we've done a biopic for 100. Let's start out the next 100 with something that maybe gives us the creeps. Maybe some deformed monsters. That's a terrible name, by the way. Deformed monsters. Why? Why Full Moon?
Yeah, we're going straight from this prestige period piece to a full moon feature.
Our first one.
Yeah.
It won't be our last.
Yeah. So this is a super trashy movie. We actually mentioned it a couple weeks ago because in Boltneck, he had a poster on his wall from this movie. So we're gonna finally check it out.
I mean, thank you, Ryan Reynolds. All right. Well, in that case, to be continued.
Looks like you've survived another episode. The Freaking Cast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Freaking Cast, or send us a letter at thefreakingcast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.